YouTubers, welcome to my channel, Andrea René Abroad, where I talk about Peace Corps, travel, and working abroad. I know this video is coming a little bit later than my usual Monday post, but hopefully you'll be able to excuse me as I am currently abroad and on the road. The last video that I posted, I filmed in Marrakesh, and now I am in Barcelona. It's taken a little bit to get here, about a week, but basically I've been in a different city almost every single night, not sleeping in any city more than 2 nights. So obviously that didn't give me enough time to film a new video for you all. But I wanted to actually do a video on some topics that some of you all have been asking me about, both on YouTube and on Instagram. I have had a lot of people ask me about how much money I saved up or what my budget is for this trip, and I don't actually want to do a video on that topic until the very end of my trip because I want to be able to then look back at my budget. I have been keeping really detailed notes on how much money I've been spending so that when I make the video at the end of my trip, I'll be able to give you all a much more accurate idea of how much it costs to be on the road for 6 months as I am doing. On Instagram, a few people have asked me about couch surfing and how to couch surf. Some of you have never done couch surfing before. So while I can't speak to budgeting yet, I can talk to you all about my experience with couch surfing. So maybe you're hearing the word couch surfing and you're like, what is that? What does that have to do with your budget? What are you talking about? For those of you who are new to couch surfing, what it is a website or phone application where you have a profile and then you view other people's profiles from different cities around the world. And when you have it in your mind, oh, I want to go visit this city, you type in that city and a whole bunch of profiles will show up of people who are willing to host you in their home for free out of the kindness of their heart when you come and visit that city. I have been utilizing couchsurfing a lot, not only because it is free and that's amazing as someone who is traveling long term, but also most importantly for me, because I am a solo female traveler and I don't want to get too lonely. Now, for those of you who read my blog, I actually just published a piece on this topic last week. So if you are interested in that, I will put a link below about why I prefer couch surfing over other methods of hospitality while traveling. To give you the short version, basically, when I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Nicaragua and an au pair in Australia, I absolutely loved living with a host family and felt that I got so much more out of the culture because I was living with locals, which is something that you cannot get from being at a hotel or a hostel, but you can get with couch surfing. That's why I like to couch surf the most, you know, aside from the fact that it's free, is because of the cultural exchange. For me, that's the biggest component, and also so I don't get so lonely because I am traveling alone, but that doesn't mean I want to be alone. That just means I myself am in charge of my own journey and my destinations. But by all means, I'm still very much interested in meeting people. I want to still be social. I am a social person, so that part of it is very important to me. So that's a little overview about what couch surfing is. If you are interested in me doing a video on how to set up a couch surfing profile in the future, comment below. I'd be more than happy to do a video on that topic, as I did for how to become an au pair. Let's go ahead and get into my experience with couch surfing so far on this trip. So I've been on the road for a little bit over a month, and so far I have visited Portugal, Spain, and Morocco, and my trip to Spain has been split into 2 parts, as I did Western Spain, Morocco, and then Eastern Spain. Let me go ahead and just tell you and talk a little bit about each of my experiences with couch surfing, and maybe that'll give you a better idea. So my first experience couch surfing was in Extremos Évora, which is in Portugal. It was on an organic farm cooperative where there were a whole bunch of different people from different countries living in the cooperative and working on the organic farm. Wow, I mean, that was an incredible first couch surfing experience. Basically, I stayed on the farm and then I also worked on the organic farm. Now, that was not required for the couch surfing, but it was something that I wanted to do. It was always kind of on my bucket list to work on an organic farm in Portugal, so I thought it would be really fun. But let me give you guys the deets on that. So I had a private room and a double bed. So that's pretty awesome. I shared food with the different people there. I also brought some food of my own to share with them, and it was an amazing cultural exchange. I was able to extend my time to 3 nights there, even though I had originally only requested for 1 night. So that was my first couchsurfing experience, and it was absolutely amazing. My second couchsurfing experience was in Mérida, Extremadura, Spain, and I stayed with an American actually who was working teaching English in Spain, and I had again a private room. It was a single bed this time. Really great experience overall. My third experience was in Zafra, Extremadura, and again I stayed with an American from Puerto Rico and a girl from Ireland who are both teaching English in Spain as well. Really, really lovely. The girls took me around the city and stuff, and we just, you know, had a chill time. I mean, it's not a touristy city, and I think that's one of the benefits of couchsurfing is you often end up in places that are not touristy at all. It's where the locals live. My fourth experience couchsurfing was in Sevilla, Andalusia, and that is the only time that I've ever slept on a couch, but their living room had doors, so it was still kind of like a private room because I could close the door and be at peace in the living room by myself, undisturbed. And that was an amazing couchsurfing experience because Sevilla is like a pretty touristy city, so I feel like had I been in a hostel, you know, it would have been maybe a little bit overwhelming or even isolating. I really don't know. My couchsurfing host was so amazing. She like took me out walking, showed me everything, and then we got together with some of her friends at a bar, and it was just so much fun. My fifth couchsurfing experience was in Meknes, Morocco. So now I had traveled to Morocco at this point, and I stayed with a young university student in her student housing situation. It's like apartments for students, so they're not dorms, but they're like apartments, but only students live there. She had 2 other roommates, and this was such a unique experience because what she did was she pushed 2 twin beds together, and then we slept like basically we shared a bed, aside from the fact that it was two separate beds pushed together, but we shared the same blankets. And I don't know, it just like, it felt very Moroccan, you know, like she didn't want me to be alone sort of thing. We shared a meal. It was really, really lovely. And then my next couchsurfing experience, again, it was still in Morocco, was in Rabat, Morocco, but it was in a suburb outside of Rabat. I didn't actually explore Rabat, but I'm totally okay with that because I had an amazing experience in the suburb with this couchsurfing host. She was a young woman who had 2 sisters living with her. So the 3 sisters, they were very traditional. There were, in the main room, there were a whole bunch of sofas like surrounding the outside rim of the main like lounge room, I guess you could say. It was like their living room. They ate there, they slept there, everything was in that room. That was just such an amazing experience because we shared all of our meals together on like one big plate. Very Moroccan, you know, using bread, using our hands to eat the food, shared plate, and then we like all went to bed on these couches all together, like in the same room, and they had like the Quran like music playing on the TV. It was just such a cool cultural experience. I absolutely loved it. And then returning to Spain, I couchsurfed in Jaén, Castilla-La Mancha with some students doing the Erasmus program. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's like an exchange student for European students to go work or go travel and study in other countries. So I stayed with 3 students from Serbia, which was really, really cool. As you can tell, even though I'm couch surfing in these countries, that doesn't mean that I'm always staying with people from those countries. A lot of times they are international themselves, which is like a whole nother layer of cultural experience and integration. So yeah, they were from Serbia, and we talked like a lot about like different things having to do with Serbia. They were very open to sharing with me about what happened in 1991, and it was just like a really unique experience. They were so friendly. Honestly, I would have loved to have stayed with them more than 1 night. And then also the most like amazing thing, she actually, like the main host that I had communicated with on the website, she gave me her bedroom. Straight up, like most amazing hospitality. And then she slept with her other roommate that night. Like they had a couch, like I could have slept on the couch, but she gave me her room, which was just so amazing. Next, I stayed in Granada, Andalusia, and that was the first time that I stayed with an older man. I was like a little bit hesitant about it, but I thought, well, if I can't find a female host, if I can at least find a private room, then I am okay with that. It like honestly wasn't weird. Like I was worried about it being weird. He's like the same age as my parents are. So I don't know, he was just kind of like a host dad, I guess you could say. So it was totally fine. So I feel like, I don't know, for solo female travelers, if you're gonna stay with a male host, my inclination is always to make sure that I have a private room, but I know that there's some of you who are maybe a little bit more open, adventurous than I am, risk takers, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it was like, okay, if I do this, it has to be a private room. And it was fine. I stayed there 2 nights. After that, my next host was in Murcia, the city of Murcia. And oh my gosh, most incredible experience. So she is from Argentina, and she is living and working at an NGO for people with disabilities, specifically Down syndrome, but other disabilities that are still like high functioning. At this particular NGO, there are 12 different apartments, and in each apartment there lives 2 people who have disabilities or are differently abled, and then there is one like guide to help them. Like basically it's like they live there, I think for a year or 2 years, the people with disabilities do, and they're being trained on how to be autonomous and how to like live by themselves basically. So that was just so cool, and like wow, like most amazing human I've like ever met. She was so generous, so giving, and then also her roommates were so sweet. It was just so cute and like amazing and inspiring to see, you know, them like learning to be autonomous. Like I just think that's so amazing. I don't know if there's houses like this in the US, but I was like, wow, I hope we have places like this in the US where people with disabilities can learn to live autonomously. I just thought that was so amazing. So super unique couchsurfing experience. And then the last couchsurfing experience that I had and will have here in Spain was in Valencia, and I stayed with an older woman. She was, I think, a little under 60 years old. She was like super awesome, has like never had kids, super independent, just lives with her little dog, and she was so generous. Really, really amazing time. I just like, I've been so grateful to all the hosts that I've had in couchsurfing, and if you have had any doubts about whether or not to do couchsurfing yourself, I highly recommend it, and I recommend that you do it with an open mind. You know, do not be hesitant to have different kinds of hosts. You know, like I have had, you know, I stayed on an organic farm, I stayed at this apartment for people with disabilities, I, you know, stayed in Morocco. That maybe, you know, some of you might be like, wow, that's like, you know, too much or whatever, I'd rather stay in a hostel in Morocco. No, definitely, like any opportunity that I can have to couch surf has just been absolutely incredible. And I learned so much more about not only the culture, but just like humanity in general, like people that I would, you know, never otherwise meet in my entire life. It's just like, wow, there is just so much value to couchsurfing. Like if someone said that I had to, you know, pay, I don't know, to couch surf, like I think I would still do it. Like that's how good it is. Speaking of paying, so if you do have a couch surfing account, you do have the option of having a verified account. I paid around $60 to have a verified account, but for me it's totally worth it just because like this has been such an amazing experience. And geez, you know, I've now couch surfed 10 times. I would have spent much more than $60 on hostels all of those nights that instead I was couch surfing. I hope that this video has at least inspired you a little bit more to consider couch surfing. Obviously this was a very surface level video. If you would like me to make another video about couch surfing, whether that be about how to make an account or how to select hosts or something on this topic, please comment below and I'd be more than happy to make another video on this topic. Couch surfing, I absolutely recommend it. Alright, if you haven't checked me out on Instagram, WordPress, and Facebook, I would love for you to follow me over there. And that wraps up this video. I will see you all next time.